don't start outside. But then, like warm. I'm not in the mood.
It's a long, long story. People get into the
Oh my God. It's not a very fire. Oh, I didn't know that's for that. It's entirely okay, got it. Almost. You go in first.
Sounds good. Receiving bill from the Bluegrass Company.
I'm saving the secret.
Native stories
He's throwing his poems in the mailbox and it's really like.
If it's ordered, it's not ordered. It's, what's the order? It's really Patrick.
memory.
Yep. She got it here. It was ordered here. Hot seats.
So to this day. And
I think she did.
I believe.
She did. That was such a great show. It was packed.
I don't think so. The rest of it.
Excuse me. Oh, yours is there is.
Staff only. Used to be a bathroom.
What was the one?
Maybe it's still is.
It is.
You just don't want people wandering in. It's like the dating.
She would like it back.
Oh, lay down.
No.
Oh,
Oh, thank you. It's so excellent.
My friend of that.
Oh, hi, Brenda. Hi,
She's
so nice to meet you.
Summarizing proofs.
Yes, I'm saying that.
She was here in Sonoma. Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, you ready to go? Yes. Ding, 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 ding.
All right, is this microphone working or do I have to play with it more? Can you guys hear me over there in the back? Anybody?
Hear you in the front too.
Good, excellent, I like that. So before we really get going, it's the boring stuff of the world. If you have anything that makes noise, a watch, a pager, a phone, a tablet, anything that makes noise, if you could make sure it's not going to do that this evening, that would be great. If you happen to know anybody who can't make it tonight, I want you guys all to know we're very fancy these days and we stream to YouTube. So tomorrow morning that archive stream will be there and you can watch it. And you guys can save it forever and if it's like me in public speaking, never look at it.
Yes.
Yes. So my name's Rosie, I'm the events coordinator here at Readers Books. I think that Sonoma is really a town of poets and it's a town that appreciates poetry a great deal. Way back, probably when I was about this high, Andy and Lila did a poetry festival here. They shut down the street. They had Bill Moyers actually came for it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful town for this and for thinking about poetry. And we're lucky enough to have 16 Rivers Press in this area and to have them come and read for us. I often think about it as a crop. It's the 16 Rivers crop of poets. And that kind of collection and collective is beautiful to have, to gather together different types of poets that all have an amazing sense of the beauty behind poetry. When I was writing up the information for your guys' event, I was thinking there's a span here. You know, there's different geographical places, there's different times, there's just an incredible loop together of what poetry means and what we can make poetry mean. So I'm going to introduce Terry first because she's going to introduce the poet whose name I'm going to mangle, so I'm not even going to try. No, they're translating. And then each poet will introduce each other as we go on. When everyone's done reading, the books are available for sale. We'll be at the counter. The counter is really conveniently in between here and where they'll be signing. So it's very useful to get the poets over there, and you guys can wait and buy all the books, and then go get them signed. So it's a very smooth process. If you guys can give all of the 16 Rivers poets a big round of applause.
Well, thank you for coming. Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Most people are probably in traffic somewhere, but this is a much more pleasant place to be. And I am going to be introducing Ulalume González de León, since she's not here to introduce herself. And that's the Mexican poet that my co-translator, Nancy Morales, and I have been engaged with since 2012. So this is a decades-long project. And because the first two volumes came out during COVID, we weren't able to do a reading here for volume 1 or volume 2. Volume 3, now the final volume in the series. And so I am going to read a selection of short poems, just in English, so you get a sense of the subject matter, the themes, the voice of this poet. And then I will hand the podium over to Nancy, who will read a selection of poems in both Spanish and in English. The first volume, we were green as translators when we attempted that. And we got to know her work deeper and better, and we had the benefit of some wonderful native language readers, one of whom is here, that's Bill Churchill. And he was so helpful, so important there are people wondering whether they should come in or not. Anyway, thank you, Bill, for all you've given us over the years. So Ulalume González de León was born in 1928 in Montevideo, Uruguay. She's the daughter of two poets, Roberto Ibáñez and Sarah de Ibáñez. She studied literature and philosophy at the Sorbonne in Paris and at the University of Mexico. While living in Mexico in 1948, she became a naturalized Mexican citizen. She published essays, stories, and poems, and worked with Mexican poet and Nobel Laureate Octavio Paz as an editor of two literary journals, Plural and Vuelta. She also translated the work of H.D., Elizabeth Bishop, Ted Hughes, Lewis Carroll, E.B. Cummings, and more. In the 1970s in Latin America, González de León was part of a generation of women writers challenging the traditional identities of women, marriage, and relationships. She died in 2009 of respiratory failure and complications of Alzheimer's. From volume 1, the opening poem, Inventing That I Live. I make up my life, lose myself in words. Where does my life begin? Where does my story end? All the doors are open. I look for the one who won't see me. Every 5 minutes, I win and lose a bet. This one in Spanish is viejo y palabras, and viejo sort of means old guy, like the old man in the sea. But we kept this gender neutral in our translation, old one and words. I can no longer invent the world alone. I'm going to die within myself with my words. A dry bouquet, not even good for the most insipid tea. Its hieroglyphic sap exhausted. I am old. The proof? I can no longer hurl a word that boomerangs, returning, charged with otherness. Inside. In Spanish, the title is lugar, which means place, but inside captures a little more of what that means in the poem. Come, now. From the wildness of night, come into this room. From the wildness of this room, come into this dream. From the wildness of this dream, come into my body. Tunnel of night through night, a dream through dream, inside that can go no deeper, inside the ultimate place. Well, that was a little selection from volume 1. From volume 2, I just want to say about the cover art for each book. Ulalume referred to herself in at least one of her poems as a magpie, and plagios means plagiarisms. And she did believe that all creative art was an act of plagiarism, that we were always taking and stealing and borrowing and recreating, and together making this one great song of art. So there's a magpie on each cover, and this one is a painting by my niece, who's a Slovakian abstract expressionist painter, and this was her interpretation of one of Ulalume's poems. The first section of volume 2 is called Muertos, the dead. Dead 3. Barely dead, the dead begin to grow, fill the room, the house, time. They don't fit inside us, nor in all the words with which we try to forget them. The dead go on forever. Plan of a different death. That death pass over me between life and death as I pass through life. That my dust be seized by light as my flesh is seized by shadow. On the other side of this song, interrupted by short circuits of absence, that of silence await me, broken by sparks of thought, by lightning bolts of love. Diurnal, and this is from the section that focuses on couples, los juntos, those joined together. Daytime is what occurs around our bodies, surviving in the night like a private bubble of light in which love always keeps its eyes open. So we only dream that we are dreaming, mindful of our agreement to be diurnal, with eyelids dancing on the tip of a geyser. And this one has an odd title, Yo es tú. The I is you. I don't know when I'm alone which of us is not here, or whether I stretch my arms toward you or toward me. And one last poem from Plagios, Volume 3, and this also features a magpie on the cover, and the artist is Nancy's brother.
Yeah, my brother Jeff. I'm so proud of it.
Oh, it's lovely to spend a little time with and also inspired by one of Ulalume's poems.
Yeah.
This one is called Escribo, I write. And I think all of you writers out there will identify. I'm thinking of drawing what does not exist. And I'm thinking of erasing what already is. Thinking about redrawing what I erased somewhere else. And thinking about erasing what I drew as well. Thinking that appears disappearing. Thinking that erases itself. I'm going to turn the podium over now to my
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see you, Hughes. Muy bien. All right, super excited to see you. So thank you all for coming. And so I'll just start out by saying if you're mom, you can't get enough of bragging about your kids. This is my brother. So my brother, Jeff. He drew this, he actually painted it and drew it, and he did it specially for us. So so I was super excited, and I love my brother. So anyway, thank you. Plagios. It is amazing. I'm going to start because when we started here in the town of Sonoma. We started translating in Sonoma off the square, yes, at the Sunflower Cafe. And that was interesting. We were just in the corner and people walking by all the time, and we were translating. So it's very exciting to be here to do this. And I've lived in Sonoma. I lived in Sonoma for over 10 years. So now I live in the other town, Napa. So yeah, exactly. So anyway,
You can't tell.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm here all the time, though. I'm here all the time. So our family we have a family business here. So I also just want to say thank you so much, Terry. This is an amazing project. Hughes, thank you so much. The art and act of translating is, it's a lot. Because there's a language there's a poem, in this case it's Spanish, and that's perfectly fine in that language. It's beautiful, it's complete, it is amazing. And now we come along as artists, as writers, as poets, and our intention is to translate, to try to somehow capture that in another language that has its own cultures, it has its own nuances, has its own everything, structure, language. It's very, and it's not a Romance. English is not a Romance language. So it is challenging and different, and you will hear that. So I'm going to read the English first, and then I will read the Spanish. And I think you will have a different experience after I read the Spanish to go, oh, that's what she means. Because what you can do in Spanish, or what you can't do in Spanish, or what you can do in English, it's just uniquely different. And I think, anyway, you'll hear it. So. So the first poem I chose is Lugares, or places, because here in Sonoma. All right, so.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
Oh, okay, places, lugares. I don't know where the tree is that keeps me so far away that now draws near. I don't know if I bring the tree with me or if it carries me. A thread from the depths of its time pulls me and drags me, while I pull a thread to uproot it at the depths of its time. It arrives, the whole tree. I, myself, am missing. Memory changes our places without moving us from where we are. Lugares. No sé dónde está el árbol que me hace estar tan lejos, ahora que se acerca. No sé si yo lo trago o si es el quien me lleva. Un hilo desde el fondo de su tiempo tira de mí y me arrastra, mientras tiro de un hilo para arrancarlo al fondo de su tiempo. Él llega, árbol entero, yo de mí misma falto. La memoria nos cambia de lugares, sin movernos de nuestros sitios. I will read a short poem called The Lover. While kissing Rosalia, he noticed there was nothing to her. No torso, head, or limbs, but these details he overlooked and covered her with kisses. El amante. Mientras besaba a Rosalía, notó que de ella nadie había, ni tronco, ni cabeza, ni miembros, pero esos detalles olvidó y la cubrió de besos. And the stairs. I heard my voice from below. It called me by my name. I ran downstairs. When I arrived, I was dead. Carrying myself on my back, I climbed up with myself. At each new step, my weight was lighter. In the end, I weighed much less than I. To go on climbing without stairs cost me nothing. Las escaleras. Oí mi voz en el fondo, por mi nombre me llamaba. Corrí escaleras abajo, cuando llegué muerta estaba. Cargándome a mis espaldas, yo conmigo fui subiendo. A cada nuevo peldaño era más leve mi peso. En el último pesaba yo mucho menos que yo. Seguir subiendo sin escaleras nada me costó. Meeting. I'm going to ask Hughes if he would come up, and you're going to read the Spanish. I'm going to read English. I'm going to do what? Thank
Me
you.
levanto y vengo.
Sí, eso.
A tus órdenes.
Gracias, muy amable. Okay. Meeting. The body of two bodies, what they were between them, and what they forgot. Sometimes it remembers them, and they, at times, then interrupt each other in their separate places. And they don't know they're traveling like two solitudes that meet each other in some distant memory, walking without foreheads and without eyes, like the wind or rivers. And they don't know if they are going to be or if they were in their separate places. Both lose their bodies without form, their souls float, while the forgotten meeting lasts, while the meeting remembers them.
Sí, como encuentro el cuerpo de los dos cuerpos, lo que fueron entre los dos y olvidaron, a veces los recuerdan. Y ellos a un tiempo se interrumpen entonces en sus lugares separados. Ya, y no saben que viajan como dos soledades que se citan en alguna memoria ajena, que andan sin sin frentes y sin ojos, como el viento a los ríos, y no saben si están, van a estar o estuvieron. En sus lugares separados, ambos pierden los cuerpos, sin molde, flotan, sin almas, mientras el olvidado encuentro dura, mientras el encuentro nos recuerda.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce our next reader, Patrick Cahill. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming out tonight on this middle of the week evening. And thank the bookstore for having us. I'm going to read a number of short prose poems. And for the most part, they have a touch of magical realism, I guess. So they're not quite real. I'm going to start out with a piece called Doubt. And this was inspired by a newspaper article that described a woman fleeing a crime scene unclothed. And there was a victim. I don't remember anything more about the story, but I invented something. Doubt. She fled the crime scene unclothed, a killer. We tracked her through woodland. We tracked her through thickets. But she absorbed the light as she fled. Mosquito grit rose in her wake. Perfume, sweat, cuts, insects her clothing now. Wind swept back from a river. She sought a deletion in her flight. Our flashlights' yellow probes passed over the undergrowth. We moved through shadows, our memory house. Leaves, an eruption of blood into the dusk. Dragon scales, a thicket of birds, silent in their flight. Our victim's wound, a sheath for her abandoned knife. Clotted with motive, recollection, the past. Will she vanish in the water's rush as we go on, free of mirrors, its dark surface, her reflection now, her lacerations a diagram of these events? Will we go on, follow the river downstream along its bank, find comfort in its ceaseless, indifferent noise, or upstream toward a puzzle of uncertain intent? This is a short piece. I grew up until my mid-teens in the Midwest, in South Dakota, and I still know some farmers back there, and a farmer told me this story, which I sort of played around with a little bit.
Plagiarize. You plagiarize.
I plagiarized, yeah. So, exactly. Maybe he told it better than I will, but he's not here, so. Frequencies. Also, there's in South Dakota, there's a prairie where I grew up, and then there's a little rise of 1,000 feet that's formed by a glacier, and then it's kind of hilly up on top. And there are a lot of sloughs and small lakes up there. But you can climb up the tower and you can look at the prairie, but not the plateau above. The tower's vertiginous wooden frame rises above the plain. A glacial plateau rising just above, beyond and above. Coteau des Prairies, among whose sloughs and shallow lakes she dug a 6-foot cubicle. A home underground. A home in a hole. Prairie roots, its walls, frost late in autumn. Coyote, rodent, deer peered in. Nights, decapitations. Did she enter their dreams? Did they hers? Lost to us, distant and invisible from the tower. Though nothing is lost above the hole, above the tower. Air shifting into higher frequencies of blue. This is a kind of a modern Western. In a cafe one day I saw a woman with black hat, broad brimmed black hat, and so I invented a story for her. It's called Saddle. Rustler Ann, underneath a broad brimmed black hat. She's on her way to some cafe or cool saloon. The hat rigged just right with a little sauce. She crosses invisible borders, still with Johnny come lately. No Desperado Dan, no giddy up and go. Salsa, sauce, mustard crisp on a missing tie. A string tie. Light rain, the street lamps yellow, light contriving its puddle of stars, glinting on the dark wet walk. So what's your plan? That scent of whiskey loitering on the breath you share with Johnny come. What do you rustle now, R. Ann? Some gray forms just visible in a snowstorm? Come summer, distant, indistinct in the trembling heat. The narrative pulling you in or under. You feel the fall into winter days, your deciduous smile fading with summer light. Remember when Doc Watson brought tears to your eyes? Doc Watson, you probably know, he's a famous mountain singer from North Carolina. Let's see. This next piece is called Isfahan, and it's a city in Iran, but I'm thinking about the city in Persia in the 18th century. And there's a little a saying that Isfahan is half of the world that was created to celebrate the beauty of the city. And I also mentioned Billy Strayhorn's Isfahan jazz composition that he did with Duke Ellington. And then there's some other things here as well. Isfahan. A touch of perfume inside her wrist carries the scent of longing and loss. A distant then. How do I take that mountain where I go? Where you go, it goes. A lemon tree at the top of the stairs. Billy Strayhorn's Isfahan composing the street. Fragrance in the air. Evening on the Pittosporum, dreaming in slow motion. Isfahan is half of the world. Slid the flat blade of the knife across her tongue. Savored the lemon juice it left. Ice melted in the palm of her words. That spider in the clock last seen, weaving its time. The invisible city of Isfahan. This is a piece called Dreamcatcher, and most of you know what a dreamcatcher is. An indigenous device, kind of a circle with ornaments and feathers hanging from it. It's supposed to bring good dreams. In this poem, it doesn't do it. A dreamcatcher. I thought that you could find us in the dark, our rabbit skin hats against the frost. We did place the idols upright in a doorway and hid in our nakedness, white among the leaves. Maybe we were mistaken for an illusion, our voice left in the spectacle. So dark once I almost swallowed a spider, confused and scratching the surface in a cup of water. Would it have spun contrivances in the soul? The dreamcatcher brought us here and we were full of anticipation. But you uttered the curse, and then some apparition murdered its soul. The elixir it sought, concealed in the blood. The vapors we fought into imagery, brown helicopters flying in tandem, large insects moving across the sky. And I'm gonna finish with a short piece that was inspired by a Hispanic story. It was in a collection of stories, and the particular story was El Caballito de Siete Colores. And the I take just the image of the whale and the bridge from the story. It's a long story, and this has not much to do with it. So I invented a little story for the whale. Also, when I was writing this, I read an article about in some South Pacific community, kids when they reach the age of 14, boys in particular, have to ride a whale as part of their inauguration. And the article was in the news because for the first time a girl was able to do this. The whale. "Talk to me," the whale said, under the bridge. "Would you bring me a cappuccino and something sweet? An almond or chocolate biscotti? And we will sing a whale song to bagpipes and flute, and praise the wonder of jicama with just a pinch of spice. As the water rises, I will swim out to sea, the bridge on my back, and you, if you dare. The bridge in time will break apart and wash ashore and scatter its remnants across the beach, and we will dive beneath the waves and dance our dance in the depths of the sea." Moira is our next speaker, Moira Magneson.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, Terry, Nancy. Thanks to Reader's Books. Happy to be here. And thanks to 16 Rivers. This is my first, maybe my only full-length collection, but I'm really glad to have, it was my goal to have a collection before I die, and I wasn't sure it was going to happen, but it's happened, so yay for me. The first poem I'm going to read is called "The Whole Truth," and it's I'm reading it because of what's going on in the country right now, and where free speech is in peril. And back in 2001, after 9/11, we were also, we're being admonished not to speak freely. Students across the United States have to be careful about their speech because they're being imprisoned and so forth. And that also happened in 2001. And I'm thinking this poem has its origins in its epigraph, which is Americans need to watch what they say, watch what they do, and that was by the White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. And similarly, the White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt has admonished many folks now, but I'm thinking in particular Jasmine Crockett, where she, called Jasmine Crockett out for speaking her truth. And also you'll hear in this poem, at that time, in around 2002 or 2003, there was to be a gathering of poets at the White House, and Sam Hamill and the various poets said, well, if we go to the White House, we're going to speak out against this war. And the poets were disinvited to the White House. So there's references to that. And also, I'm giving a lot of preamble, sorry about this. This poem is also plagiarized in a way because it's after William Blake. So you'll hear some echoes of his poetry in here. The Whole Truth. I say this, you will not corral me, shear my words or dock my tongue. I will not cut it out. My mouth is holy. I am the human form divine. I promise that my broken feet will trample through your dreams. I will lick your neck, your body politic, keep you awake.
I will trouble your dark sleep as you've troubled mine. I do not fear the wild beasts, for I am blessed. Black sheep, nightmare, woolly disinvitation, I am the little lamb of God. Damn, God damn. So that's my protest poem. I have to read one protest poem. Okay.
Right on.
Next poem, I live in the Sierra foothills, much like the foothills around the Sonoma area. And this poem is called This Hound. It is for a dog named Creek, who is a good dog. Okay. Wherever scent blows, this hound goes, flop-eared mutt, 3 times snake bit, bound by the black wet leather of his nose. He trots the trail happily, lapping the green hills over and back again. Oh, to be this dog, pissing and crapping, drinking in the trough of wind, coyote scat, deer fur, snagged on outcrop rock, pine duff. The frag and slough of possum skin, the bear's bleached bones, musky underneath a river stone. The swoon of smells his canine art, rotting awful, the pleasure of his days. Unlike me, he loves this stinking world. With all his wagging heart, he barks rough praise. There's a parental advisory just over these poems because there's a lot of profanity, and then you should be warned. Okay. Next poem.
Just cover your ears.
This next poem takes its, it leaps from this, I was reading an article on Wittgenstein and Bertrand Russell, and the article was called Russell, Wittgenstein, and the Problem of the Rhinoceros. And there's a little epigraph here that I need to read because it launches folks into the poem. And so the poem is called Hippopotamus, an Inserted Proposition. So here's the epigraph. Is there a rhinoceros in the room? One of the earliest encounters between Bertrand Russell and the young Ludwig Wittgenstein involved a discussion about whether there was a rhinoceros in their room. Apparently, when Wittgenstein refused to admit that it was certain there was not a rhinoceros in the room, Russell half-jokingly looked underneath the desks to prove it, but to no avail. My German engineer, I think, is a fool, concluded Russell. He thinks nothing empirical is knowable. I asked him to admit that there was not a rhinoceros in the room, but he wouldn't. Okay. Mud wallower, tusked herbivore, fierce creature of the occipital cranial, tramples a poem's ground of existence, big rump rubbing its margins. There, do you hear him? Go on, you heard him. He just shat and peed. Now the poem is wet with hippopotamus. I tell you, there is only so much heft and weight a poem can take. A crown sonnet can house a hippo, but trust me, a villanelle, hell. Ah, aroma. The redolent indolence of a certain hippopotamus. Never mind the certainty of the hippopotamus in this poem, chewing on the fallen fruit of logos, the long lianas of lines, tromping tercets, head-butting stanzas off the page. He can do and undo everything. Look! Over there, at the watering hole, he has got himself into quite an enjambment. Hippopotamus. Oh my, there are 2 hippopotamuses in this poem. They are rotting, engaged in their fat frisson of excitement. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh! Dear reader, voyeur, you are disturbing them. The hippopotami would now like you to quietly excuse yourself. Take your feeble, flimsy inner tube of language, kick down river with your puny legs, and over the falls to the crocodiles.
What happened to the rhinoceros?
The rhinoceros was just like a springboard. Somehow I got enmeshed in hippopotamus, and truly, at one of these readings that I did, people heard that poem and then they went and YouTubed hippopotamus shitting. And it's a wonder. I recommend you go see it because it's remarkable what they do. It's just a phenomenon, and it's worth seeing. It's not really offensive. It's just a marvel. So I love them.
Thank you.
Okay. Next poem. Mom Drives Fast. So I grew up in the Bay Area. This poem is a love letter to Oakland. It's also a love letter to my brothers, and it's about family. Mom drives fast, like a rocket down I-80. 3 kids packed in the back of the Mustang, Naugahyde seats, ashtrays crammed. Jed mutters, Mays, McCovey, Jesus Alou, shuffles trading cards. Sean exhales in my face, breath rancid, last night's beans mashed into his braces. The top is down, our eyes slits in the wind, in and out of twilight traffic we zoom. 60, 70, 85. Mom drives fast, red, green, gold neon spills onto a blue planet. Sherwin-Williams cover the earth. Cattails catch the sun's last light. Mom veers onto the MacArthur fart stink of East Bay mud. Who let one? Down by the docks, 100-foot-high loading cranes, white Trojan horses wait for container ships. Mom chain smokes, flicks cigarettes like sticks of dynamite out the car. Litterbug, Sean wails. Shut up, Mom yells, whips by the California hotel where eye level to the freeway, boxed in a gold halo, a man in his underwear opens a refrigerator. Muhammad Ali, Jed chants. Shut the fuck up, your dad's in jail again. Again? It's news to me, but everything's news in this family. We careen off Grand, boom, 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 through 3 yellow lights along Lake Merritt, past the aviary night song of wrecked birds, past fairyland, princesses and dwarfs, up Franklin into Chinatown, our lungs swelling with the sweet bloom of fortune cookies, fly down 14th, the House of Woodwinds, the ticking dark face of the Tribune Tower, onto Broadway, Mexicali Rose, Swan's department store, Rudy's bail bonds, to the steps of the jail where she swerves to the curb and brakes, our heads snapping to attention. At the top of the stairs, hands shoved into jingling pockets, he waits, whistling. And while she holds back, we tumble out, bound forward, thrilled to prop him up with our love. Thank you. Let's see, what's the time? Okay, one more poem. So I live, as I said, in the Sierra foothills, and I taught at Sacramento City College for a long time. And you guys, I'm sure some of you have commuted or have the long commute between here and San Francisco or here in Sacramento. So the commute can wear you down. Some days it's an hour and a half commute. The highway corridor choked with car horns and exhaust, and a Dodge Ram nitwit tailgating, flashing his high beams, and I can see the man in my rearview mirror stabbing the air with his lit cigarette. My plain brown Toyota Corolla and its medley of bumper stickers obviously interfering with his ability to lead a life free of government. When the radio delivers nothing but bad news. Extinction of the Delta smelt, home foreclosures, Santa Ana winds whipping up wildfires. Some days, by the time I pull into the driveway, it's 8 o'clock and dark. And all I want is to hear the pianissimo of ice clinking and a tumbler of scotch, taste its cold burn down my throat. I turn my key in the heavy brass lock and they come running, tails straight up behind them, arching at the tip, little cataracts of purrs rumbling in their bellies, and they weave their soft bodies in and out between my legs, rubbing off the debris and dirt, singing their kind chorus of meows, burnishing me to brightness, polishing me back to the animal I am. Thank you. Oh, it's a question and answer time. Maybe. You have any?
I'm sure they do. My job is to pass the microphone if I can. Let's see. Questions, comments, requests? Yeah, in the back.
I have a question. So you did 3 volumes. Is there a difference between the 3 volumes in terms of material or style or tone or anything? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we were working with one volume in Spanish called Plagios, but it was actually a combination of 2 previously published books, so probably would have made more sense for us to do a 2-volume sequence, but we opted for 3 for a lot of practical reasons. The poems are arranged chronologically, and so you see her earlier work, and many of the themes and subject matter carry over for all 3 volumes. But yes, she's up to some very different kind of language tricks in each one. For example, in the 2nd volume, she is literally plagiarizing. She's pulling a lot of material from philosophers. She's also working with a Time Life book called Nature, in the Spanish edition of it, where she's talking about insect life and cicadas and
Caves, environmental caves.
oh yes, those glowworms in the caves in New Zealand. How do you, and sometimes it's just like, how do you translate something that's been plagiarized from somewhere else? And then the 3rd volume, her final her final collection, she has a series of poems called, she calls them the quarto poems. They're poems about rooms. And she's fixated on color, and colors mean different things for her, and where there is color, where there's an absence of color. So yeah, there's a different focus in each book. I'm absolutely in love with some of the poems in each, but in volume 2 was a collection of poems I originally encountered in a prose poem anthology. There are no prose poems in the edition that we were translating, but she must have decided she wanted her poems in this international anthology, and so she allowed them to be presented as prose poems and collected in a group that she called the Anatomy of Love. That was my first encounter with her work. They're not a whole connected series. They're kind of here and there all through what we published as volume 2, and not called the Anatomy of Love. So, but nonetheless, those are some of my favorite poems. And Nancy, do you want to say anything about that?
I just want to address the tone. I do believe that as I like to say repetition is not redundancy. You just get to go deeper, right? So you're seeing the same thing and being with an artist for over at least 12 years, you kind of get to know a lot of her things, or her style, the way her tone, the way she speaks, her diction, her language, her register. So I think that the last, this latest book kind of takes more chances in terms of translating. It opens up the translating world in a way that maybe we're more comfortable taking chances or saying, okay, let's look at this. And I think if you get the book yourself and you look, they're bilingual, they're side-by-side poems. So if you read the Spanish on one side, which is on the left side, and our poem, which is on the right side, you can kind of see like, hey, that doesn't exactly translate that way. You say, how come or why? And I think we did take chances, and which was great for us, and I think great for the work and for the creative work of poetry, and also kind of trying to create something that you lost in the Spanish, maybe the musicality, and sometimes that you can experience in just the first language. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think you did a great job on the translation, pero todavía no comprendo el título. ¿Qué es la palabra?
Plagios.
El título.
Plagios.
Plagios.
Plagios. Plagiarism.
Plagios. Plagios.
Entonces eso.
Okay.
Entonces
No.
ella está teniendo una conversación con todo el mundo, diciendo, ok,
Sí.
voy a elegir una parte de esto, otra parte de eso.
No conocía esa palabra. Gracias. Okay.
Yeah. The poem that Ninfa, that Nancy read, Trees, was reminded me immediately of Árbol Adentro por Octavio Paz.
Yeah.
I mean, the same imagery, and it took it beyond where he left it. So it was a good example of that. I think what's so important, to go back to what Nancy just said, is that the poems, the translations in English, are engaging as poetry. And if they're translated, the Spanish literally is a monolingual, meaning an English speaker would be confused and not proceed through the book. But the way that you guys have done it, it's an engaging experience in English, and so you stay with it. There's no way, I think the best translator I'm aware of was Jose Marti, who translated French and English into Spanish, and you don't even have to know a word in Spanish, but you can, just by hearing the cadence and the structure, you know what it is.
Oh.
You know what it is. If you ever get a chance to look at his early translations, they're amazing, but it's a marvel to accomplish what you guys have accomplished. Yeah,
Thank you.
because they haven't, it's engaging is English poetry.
And I just want to add with the Octavio Paz part, there are only 5 Latin American writers who received the Nobel Prize, and Octavio Paz was one of them.
Was one of them.
Yeah, so there's only 5. Yeah, Gabriel Mistral is the only female, so she's from Chile, Pablo Neruda. and-
Gabriel Marquez.
But he's from Colombia, Gabriel
Yeah.
Garcia Marquez, Octavio Paz, and from Peru, Mario, yes.
La maestra de Neruda.
Yeah, so I just find that fascinating that she was that adjacent, right, to the Nobel Prize writer and winner, and I just find her work is very, very studied, very interesting. In many ways, for me, I find that she was writing during a time where exploring the abstract took you away from yourself and you kind of floated the poem. So for us, or for myself, to ground it in more maybe words that are in English that you would think of as grounding words was helpful. But she's fascinating, so thank you.
Wow. Do you think, oh, go ahead.
No,
I'm just wondering if she were writing, I mean, this is, I think you, can you hear me? You can-
Yeah.
So if she's writing, like, if she's coming into her own today, 2024, 2025, would she be recognized as a more, on the level with Octavio Paz? Meaning, would she be considered, I'm just wondering if she missed out on the Nobel Prize.
Wow, what a great question. Well, I think.
Because her stuff is wild. I mean,
Kind
I
of
love
like
it.
yours, kind of like your work.
It's wild. It's like
It's wild.
existential and floaty and,
Yeah.
yeah.
and it's startling, just kind of go, whoa, where did this come from? Out on the, well, I had this experience.
Like, she's brilliant.
Pardon?
What do you think?
Would she be,
Like, more
Nominated for-
respected, more acknowledged.
Or less.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I hope not less.
yeah,
but yeah.
I think she was well respected at the time that she was publishing. The reality was that she lost her words, that she, in that poem, World One in Words, said, that will happen. And it did, when she, as a result of Alzheimer's. And so there was, let's see, from 2000 and, so from about 1979 to her death in 2009, she was writing some, but she wasn't publishing. And so, she just kind of fell out of attention, fell out of the spotlight. And that's a great loss, but,
I just want to kind of go back to what Moira was saying. If, that's a big if she were writing now and she would have a presence of mind and had language still, what would she do? I think that she's writing on 5 poet laureates from the country, from Latin America. And she was a pioneer at the time. So when she was writing, she was at the forefront. So she's setting the pace and setting the place for women writers, Latin American writers. So she's originally from Uruguay, and in Uruguay, they would not publish her.
Yeah.
They would not publish her.
And
Why? Because she was a female. They had no time for that. They didn't believe in that. Yes, continue.
What we didn't hear today, some of the poems are absolutely deliciously erotic, and so it's worth reading.
All right.
And shame on you for not
Choosing
Animals. But anyway, she wrote those at a time when Latina women did not write about those things. You know?
And because the women's movement that happened in the West here in the United States is very different than how it happened in Latin America. And so it's not the same way as it evolved. It evolved differently. So let's go back and what you're saying right now, there's a chorus of women, there's an uprising of women, there's a lot of voices now that want to be heard. Would she be in the group of women that are saying things and doing different artistic movements in terms of visual artists and doing different things? Would she be in the midst of that? She may be, because she linked herself with very elitist type artists at the time. So, it's a very different group that she was working with. And her husband, Teodoro González de León, he created all the UNAMIs, which are the public universities. He built the public universities in Mexico City.
Yeah, he's the architect.
He's the architect.
World Heritage sites used Central America and certainly in Mexico City.
Yeah, and she lived in a very specific part of Mexico City, a very, very particular part of Mexico City. So to recreate that now, I don't know, right? I don't know how that would be heard now, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts on that.
Interesting. Other questions, maybe for other authors?
I have a
Yes.
question for Patrick.
Yay, great.
The Whale Rider poem that you read last,
Yeah,
you probably saw the movie Whale Rider,
what's that?
where a girl rides a whale. And
Mhm.
I just want to hear a little bit more about what was behind the inspiration for that particular poem, if you have more to say.
Well, I was struggling to learn Spanish. I read a collection of poems for young people, or not poems, but stories, actually, fables. And that was one of the longer ones in the book. And I'm not quite sure why I focused on that, because that's a very small part of the story, actually. It's a story about, in poems, Spanish poems or Hispanic poems for young people, there's always a young prince, maybe 14 years old, and he's trying to get to his young lover. And there are a lot of tasks he has to face. And so this happens fairly early. He encounters this whale and the bridge, and then he goes on his task. And for some reason, it just caught my imagination. And I might have also heard about teenagers in the South Pacific riding whales as part of an initiation. And so the two of them came together.
Lovely.
It was lovely. It's a lovely metaphor. Yeah, it's wonderful. Rosie, do you want to ask?
One more question. There's time for one more question if anyone wants to take that lead.
Can I just say, variety is the spice of life, and what a great trio has been presented here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have two announcements, and then book sales and book signing for those of you who would like to make a purchase. The North Bay Bohemian has a feature writer, Carrie Hess, and she has created a fabulous article. It's a feature article in today's North Bay Bohemian on Plagios, on all 3 volumes, but with the focus on Plagios 3. So you can get a little bit more into the history of what we've been up to since 2012. The other is that I made reservations at the Mexican restaurant Maya for 7:30, so come and join us. They're expecting a group and would love to have you all there.